hosting this. So if we look at what Seth Golden said once, he said, the right information brings knowledge. Knowledge is power, and sharing it is empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the purpose of today. We'd like to thank everybody that completed the survey, and we do hope that the information you'll receive today will help you to grow your firm from strength to strength. As you've seen, we are 4 panel members, and I'd like to just on a high level quickly introduce all of us. The 4 members are Earl Steyn, Karen Maitland, Paul de Vantier, and then myself, Emmeline Veldman. Now, first, let me give you some background on each person. So Earl is the founder and the CEO of DraftWorks. It is a fully integrated automated drafting and working paper suite that guarantees full compliance with accounting and auditing standards, as well as requirements of the CIPC and SARS. So definitely something we all need because it makes your life so much easier. Earl has more than 10 years post-article experience in the accounting profession, and he is an expert in the digital reporting system that's used by CIPC. Next, we have Karen Maitland. Now, Karen has a very extensive CV. I am sure all of you know her already, but if I can try and summarize Karen's CV, she is a chartered accountant and an RA. She has lectured extensively at UKZN. Karen was deputy head of the School of Accounting at UKZN. She was appointed as a visiting associate professor to the University of Limpopo, tasked with mentoring their financial accounting staff in August 2011 to December 2013. Since Jan 2011, she has had her own business, a technical freelance consultant and trainer to those working within the accounting profession. She's a technical advisor to the SAICA Eastern Region, Midlands District, Northern District, and Southern District associations, as well as the Small Practice Interest Group in Durban, specializing in financial reporting, IFRS for SMEs, and general accounting, assurance, legislation, and ethics. It's a very long CV. Karen, we're very privileged to have you here. We love the passion you have for corporate governance, Companies Act, financial management for non-financial individuals. And Karen is not only technical, she's very committed to environmental affairs. She's a non-executive director for the Institute of Natural Resources. Karen, welcome. Next, we have Paul de Vantier. Paul has extensive experience. He has been in business for almost 30 years. He founded a research business called KA Smart in 2002, which listed on the JSE in 2010, and subsequently it was purchased by Lightstone Group, renamed Lightstone Consumer, and delisted in 2013. After 5 years of being the managing director, Paul established Mission Control. It's a business focused on providing leadership, advice, and support to a variety of enterprises. So Paul really understands market research and marketing consulting businesses. And Mission Control, you'll note, is the entity that performed the survey for us. Thank you so much. Welcome, Paul. Right, and I'm Emmeline Veldman. I'm a chartered accountant and a neurocoach. I've been in public and private sector. I have done many things: performance audits, forensic investigations, regularity audits. I'm a registered psycho-assessor. I was in charge of the trainee auditor scheme at the Auditor General of South Africa, so I understand SAICA, SAIGA, ACCA. And I've also been managing director of 2 training companies. I'm very passionate about people development. I think it's absolutely a privilege to help somebody reach their dream, and have therefore also qualified as a neurocoach, specializing in executive career and business coaching. And in the little time I have left, I'm also a mentor for International Public Finance by Women organization, with mentees in the USA and in Jamaica. And yes, I'm a psycho reviewer as well, trying to balance everything. So let's get to the nitty gritty, why you guys are here. I'm going to hand over to Paul, and we're going to first just look on a high level. What are the survey? How did the survey happen? What were the high level things? And then we'll go into key insights. Paul, handing over to you.
Unmute. All right. Hi, everybody. So this survey, in fact, we did the third survey. There have been two previous surveys, and we were fortunate enough to be contracted to have a look at doing it again. And so one of the big benefits is when you do the third survey is that you have the ability to track and measure trends. As we've already said, this survey is about helping small and medium practices manage their businesses and enable them to compete. And we're able to track over time things like fees charged, very important. How big are the offices? Some interesting stuff coming out there in view of the pandemic that we've all hopefully just been through, and it's now over. Staffing structures, salaries paid, also very important. And one needs to look at what are we paying our staff? Are we competitive? Are we paying them too much, too little, etc.? Profitability of our business, and marketing. How do we get new business? How do we get clients, and how we keep clients? So the benchmarking of staff costs, we'll see some interesting findings. In a few minutes, I'll highlight some of that. How do you obtain new clients? And we had a diverse range of inputs from some practice members or practice owners who said that they felt it was unethical to market to look for new clients, and others who were very aggressive and did all kinds of marketing and advertising. The average fees charged for different services. It's quite an extensive section of the report where it goes into quite a lot of detail covering all the different services and functions that the average practice makes available to their clients. Client management techniques, a full range of how do you deal with your clients, right through to how do you deal with delinquent clients and collecting money when necessary and that sort of thing. Very importantly, technology trends. There's a lot of information there around software. And the interesting part there is not only the software, but also the very big pressures that COVID brought on the industry, with people working from home and suddenly finding it necessary to reinvest in that space. I think it already almost doesn't bear saying, but obviously this allows you to benchmark your firm's performance against your peers, assess your firm's results, and how does it align with your results and your strategy, the top metrics for yourself over the next few years, and then engage with your staff about implementation of those plans and tactics. Hopefully everybody can read the slide. The little pic is a little indistinct, but it really is there to demonstrate one simple thing, and that is sample has been fairly consistent in terms of its regional spread over the last 3 years, or actually over the last, it looks like a lot more than 3 years. It's actually 2014. It looks like every 2 years or so. And the vast majority are incorporated companies or sole proprietors. More than half have been in practice for well over 10 years. As many as 47%, almost half, run their practices from home. And an interesting outcome, we asked the question of, once the lockdown measures and COVID was a thing of the past, how many of you would continue to have this part office, part work from home arrangement? And as many as 15 said that they would continue to do it even once we went back to so-called normality. This slide shows us the age profile over time. It's quite interesting to see that partners have got older. Well, in fact, generally the average age of all your staff members has grown. We did notice in the owners and partners section, quite a number of partners had delayed retirement, either for financial reasons or because with this new environment they felt it necessary to stay at the helm. In terms of cost to company, this is the average annual cost to company for your different levels of staff, from admin staff through to owners and partners, are obviously taking out the most. Otherwise, they're the ones who take the risk, and they're the ones who are the owners and partners, professional staff, and so on. This hasn't shifted much over time, but has in fact grown exactly as you would expect it to. In terms of bonus payments, when there were bonus or are bonus payments, it focuses on growth metrics. Most practice owners look at adding new clients, achieving good targets on your billable hours, and obviously outstanding individual performances are the criteria. Okay, some insights. Is that me still? I think. No, Karen.
Thank you, Paul. I think it's great to know and comforting to know that more than 50% of the firms have been in business so long. It motivates the rest of us to say, you know what, hang in there. But I'm now handing over to Karen for her insights.
No, 100%. And a couple of things that Earl mentioned as well for me was the age of the owners. If you look at that, they were in their mid to upper 40s, which means they've still got a good 20 years to add to the profession, which is also good. It's nice to see that they are mature enough and they're staying in the profession and adding value to the profession and engaging and developing the profession. We're going to have some interesting insights coming through from this year as well, is that we've had some industry disruptions with just newcomers into the place, into the space, where staff are moving because of salaries and because they think it's bigger and brighter, but they're coming back for experience. So it's becoming more and more interesting about making your staff feel welcomed and making your staff feel like there's a future to grow in the business. That is actually what keeps your staff with you. It's not always about the money. It's about what they see in the business as it goes forward. And that's been my engagement with staff at a personal level and on a conversation level. Many of you know me. I have to go and trim that CV. You made me realize that I usually just pop it in there and just carry on, and I didn't know who you were talking about. But it's lovely to actually talk in a non-technical space, but more of a practice management space, because when you're training and developing people, you're often dealing with the practice management, and that's exactly what the survey is about. It's about practice management, and it's how to make your practice more efficient and how to make it better. Now, one of the things that I'm always on about is that we're getting into this world of being careful about being a jack of all trades. You've got to be careful about being a jack of all trades. We've got to start becoming sort of really skilled at a few things. Although, nobody ever finishes that saying. I don't know if everybody knows the full saying where it says, be careful of being a jack of all trades and a master of none, but it's better to be a jack of a few rather than a master of none. So there's this balance between having a few things that you're good at rather than trying to do everything. So it's interesting to see the different areas that people are playing in, and also to see the gaps that you might see. Well, there's not that much happening in a certain space, and maybe I'm really good at that space, and maybe I need to pursue that space. On the other side of it is fees, because at the end of the day, if we are accountants, we understand that although revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash flow is reality, it's really hard in a very competitive space to pitch our prices at the right space. So that is why I'm really interested in these two particular sections. It was very hard to choose. I actually sent an email to Annalene and said, okay, give me the bits that nobody else wants, because I could actually talk on everything here. I'm really experienced. So again, 47% have shown an increase in turnover. And that's another thing that I wasn't surprised to see, because when people are struggling, accountants become needed. So when the economy is in a difficult space, suddenly people realize we need guidance, we need help, and we need somebody to hold our hands. It's generally when the cash is flowing and everybody's happy, then people go, oh, you know what, I'm doing okay. I don't need somebody to guide me through this. But when things, when people's backs are against the walls, when they're needing to get specialized help, that's generally when we are the busiest. So we always go opposite. When everybody else is struggling, we're doing well. And then when everybody else is doing well, suddenly we are, suddenly we maybe, become, well, we don't really need you, and maybe we can do this on our own. So when we look at the reason for the increase, new clients, people coming into the market, fee increases, which I'm really glad to see. I always have this thing about the accounting profession that we are people pleasers, we are problem solvers, and we often give too much of ourselves away. We don't actually value our time. We don't value the knowledge and the skill that we have. The legal profession, the medical profession, they don't hesitate to charge you, as somebody once said to me, charge like a wounded rhino, where we are almost apologetic when we hand our fee over. And I think half the time it's because we know their balance sheet. And then we start to sort of think, oh, well, if this is their balance sheet or the income statement, how could they possibly pay us? That's not the point. We've offered value, we've offered service, and we deserve it. And the sense of our own worth needs to go in here. So I'm very excited to see that the fees are going up. Improve productivity. And Earl, I'm going to lay that a lot at your space, because I had one client say to me, you know what, Karen, when I used to do this manually or do this in the old way, it took me a week to look at this client. Now that I'm using technology, I can do the same client in 30 minutes. Which means that I have a lot more space to do a lot more clients, and I'm far more productive.
Hopefully charge more as well, Karen.
And hopefully charge more, and then the client doesn't even realize that they're doing half the work themselves, because they're reconciling the bank statement, and we just simply pulling the report, but we don't tell them that part. But we are becoming, we're also able to add more value, because technology is taking the grind away, and we are able to actually get to that next level of service of showing them what we know, and that we are more than just bookkeepers. We actually are consultants to business. So this improved productivity means that we actually get to the exciting stuff rather than the drudge stuff. And it also means that our staff complement is changing as well. I've got quite a few practices coming through now that are half IT, half bookkeepers, because they need to support the IT element of their clients' businesses as well as their own businesses. So the actual structure of practices, Paul, I'm going to be very excited to see in the next run of this as to what the makeup of people staffing is. Because I think we're drawing more needing IT and technology in our offices. And then, let's face it, during COVID and during the pandemic, and I'm from KwaZulu-Natal, so we've become crisis management accountants, where we've had flooding, we've had looting, we're waiting for the next plague to hit us. And when you're a crisis management accountant, you're dealing with liquidations, you're dealing with business rescue, you're dealing with cash flow management, you're dealing with access to finance, and suddenly your clients are looking at you going, oh my word, you can do this. Oh my word, you have these skills. We thought all you did was draft numbers that we never looked at. So suddenly, because technology is taking away the grind, because we are actually valuing our time, we are now consulting more to our clients. The clients are actually valuing us more. We are giving them, helping them in their businesses to survive or to improve or become more efficient. And then they're happy to pay our fee because there's a value add. And this is something that I really want people to understand. So our core business, our money makers, our bread and butter are always going to be in the space of bookkeeping, taxation, and compilation. Why? You think of an accountant and you think of that's what they do. It's the same as when people think that when you go to the doctor, this is all the doctor does. Meantime, they can actually do a lot more. So we are now having to teach our client base that we can do all of these other things. So I found it really interesting to see time spent to fees is still pretty consistent if you look down this, but you'll see that we have had a little bit of a shift. Mainly in the 2021, we haven't had as much time maybe to be doing our normal work because we've been doing liquidations, we've been doing more payroll. Think of TERS and the nightmare that TERS was. And we've had to extend ourselves into other spaces, but there are far more interesting spaces to specialize in. With, for example, the next big one being environmental governance and social reporting. So there's always something new to look at. Where do you get your work from? Referrals are always going to be the best. You do a good job, you do an amazing job, people are going to tell other people about what you did. And you're also then vetting because like attracts like. So if you've got a good client base, they will refer you to other people that are like them, and hopefully that is a good client base to have, and it's a more stable client base to have. Service level, being good at what you do, networks, okay. Social media is there, but we've got to be careful of cold calling. We've got to be careful of our ethics in terms of how we promote ourselves. We can't, like other places, go, we are the best accountants in town, because the other accountants in town will go, really? And what are we, chopped cheese? So we've got to manage that. So social media is a bit more difficult for us to market on. I am seeing a lot of people taking over practices. Succession planning is a big challenge for us. And there's a throughput issue and there's a challenge issue with succession planning. But people are picking up other people's books because people have gone to Australia, people have, COVID has affected them. They've decided that they'd much rather go. I had one practitioner become go study theology, and I don't know what made him go into that space and leave the profession, but that does leave client base behind. I have always joked with accountants this: we are never short of work. We have a skill shortage in the profession, and that's another reason we need to push our fees, because the capacity is limited to the work that is available. And if people aren't prepared to value us, then there are other people that can do that work. We only have so many hours in the day to do a good job. The fees also allow us the space to give good quality service. If you are too rushed in your fees, you're not going to give the service that you need in order to maintain your ethics in it as well. So the different types of work, I would rather do a good job and have other people talk about me and have those type of clients come back to me and elevate myself in that way. Speaking about fees, I'm on a crusade, so maybe you shouldn't have given me the fee section, Annalene, because I'm on a huge crusade for us to get away from time-based charging. We have to go on value pricing, product-based. If you're working with products that, like tax returns, have an easy, medium, and hard price list. There is, that old analogy of that engineer that went out to, the oil platform and helped them solve a problem by just tapping here and tapping there and billing them R1 million. And they said, well, you only spend 5 minutes doing it. I said, yes, but I spent 30 years knowing where to tap. We can't charge hours. Why should I charge one client 30 minutes? It took me 30 minutes to do it when it took me 30 years to learn and to gather the knowledge to be able to solve your problem quickly. So time-based does not give, and then also time-based limits you in the amount of revenue you can earn in a practice because you only have so many hours, as opposed to value-based pricing, as opposed to product-based pricing, and use what I call the cone of uncertainty. Let the client know that if this is an easy job and everything goes smoothly, you will not be charged less than this. If this is a horrendous job, I'll cap my fee at that. But somewhere in between is where the fee is going to land. At least gives the client an understanding, the communication as to what to expect. And having that communication with them as to what to expect generally makes clients happy. And also gives them a sense of control, that if they are up on their game, they can control their fee, as opposed just to being exposed to the fee. So we've got to up our communication with our client as well. But we all complain about being too busy. We all complain about not having enough hours in the day. We have to value ourselves in order to turn that into the fees that we earn, and for our clients to see the service that we can offer. Because as you can see from the slide that had all the various different things we do, we are not just bookkeepers, we are not just tax practitioners, and we don't just draft financials. We are far more skilled in far more ways. Okay. So I think I possibly hit my time target. Again, the delegates know me and know that I can talk the hind leg off a donkey. But these are the points that I would like to get across to people in their practices. Look at what you're good at, become focused on those areas, specialize in those areas, network with other accountants that are good at other things, and collaborate with each other. We really do need to work with each other as opposed to working against each other. If you undercut your competitor, you actually just undercut everyone and you've put yourself in a bad situation. You actually, rather support yourself. And my last thought on fees is going to be this. You walk into a medical practice and somebody tells you you need to have an operation. Which doctor are you going to go? The one that charges below medical aid rates, the one that charges medical aid rates, or the one that charges 5 times medical aid rates? And why are you going to the one that charges 5 times medical aid rate? You value their experience and you think they're good. So the way we charge also communicates what we think of ourselves. Just back it up with good service is all I'll say, because otherwise they won't come back and they'll tell everybody that you were a ripoff. But anyway, so I'll take a breath now. And
Thanks,
Earl,
Karen.
I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Karen. I suppose it's always a grudge purchase for bookkeeping. I know when it comes to pay my auditors, I go, and I do the EFT, and there are clients as well, so it's really conflicting. But still, it's a grudge purchase. But I suppose that's the way it is. And thankfully, it's one of those mandatory things that we need. And will keep us in business. So I agree wholeheartedly with your comments that I do see in the market people undercharge, and there's a lot of fee baiting, as I like to call it, and I think that's something that should change. So hopefully we can drive that change in the near future. But I'm here to really say thank you, and thank you to all of our clients. We've had some momental growth in the last few years, and we're now the #1 news package in South Africa for financial statements, and second for working papers, only second to Excel, of all things, which was quite a surprise. So now we're gunning after Excel. I suppose that is also ready for more of the smaller compilations where you don't need to have a sort of a methodology that takes care of you, for example, like our RAC audit methodology does. So what we see when we engage with clients and when we discuss what clients want out of our package, we've noticed that financial statements seem to be the cherry on the top for fees. That's where you should be making your greatest profit. So we're very happy to be involved with that and driving automation. So you can spend less time. But again, like Karen was saying, you're going to be charging more because you know how to do it. I think when it comes to financial statements and tax, it's at elevated level. It's not the debits and credits, which you can have a junior bookkeeper do. Financial statements and tax, there's knowledge in there. So we should be charging more. And for the most part, I see a lot of guys doing that. So, but I think we really need to refocus all of our clients that while there is a lot of competition out there, a lot of you are underselling your abilities. Something that we did, and please stop me when I get over my time, something that we did actually in COVID, we released a product called DraftWorks Cloud, which changed the landscape a lot, especially for what I called the part-time accountant. When there was uncertainty in the industry, we saw a lot of guys from corporate move and start a little practice on the side just to ensure continual revenue stream in case anything happened to the employment. So that gave rise to the part-time accountant. Full-time accountant during the time, part-time consultant at the evening, and they were looking for a package that would suit and fit into that requirement of not being full-time, and DraftWorks Cloud fitted into that perfectly. So what we did is, while we still have the desktop product, which allows you to do unlimited entities, we brought out Cloud, which allows you to only pay for what you use. And we saw a massive increase. Within a year, we had 3,000 new practices come on to DraftWorks Cloud, and the majority of that was the part-time accountant. So we have seen increased competition come in. What we also saw out of COVID is about 5 to 10% of small practices did close. So it's been a bit of an interesting level where there's been a lot more coming into the market, but some have battled and have failed. Although we've seen a lot of those firms come back now, which is fantastic. So upbeat and optimistic about the future and or the future of our clients and the industry within South Africa. So really thankful for that. I think one of the main reasons we've seen our growth is around pricing and also around the need to automate. That automation where you can do a set of financial statements in 15 minutes, and you really can do a draft of set of financial statements in 15 minutes, actually even in less. You jump over to our website to actually do a demo of a draft set of financial statements. Final trial balance. So tax has been raised, everything's been raised. You import a final T draft financial statements out in 7 minutes. I mean, that's just fantastic. And year 2 is even faster. So I think the idea is, again, around that, as Karen was mentioned, that's something you can't build time for. You can't go and charge 7 minutes. That's something that you should. And often I'll get a WhatsApp from a client saying, rolled forward, imported the TV, financial statements out in total of half an hour, build 6 hours for it. And I go, fantastic. That's the way it should be. And often there's a 1 or 2 clerks that are taking 6 hours to do those financial statements. For anyone that does have it, come and chat to us. Let's have a look at why they're taking so long. It should really be quick. But again, I was a clerk once upon a time as well. Clerks think a little bit slower until we get that experience that enables us again to push through and drive automation and drive our output in our practice. So I think a very interesting year ahead. Again, very thankful to everybody that drove it. You can probably jump to the next slide, Anu. Thank you. And what we're seeing just in terms of the market, 42% is now on DraftWorks, and we're seeing with our subsequent growth, we should be going into the 50+% this year. So it's going to be nice to see more and more financials being done on DraftWorks. Thank you to all of our clients. And then the working papers is, of course, a very interesting one. So we often see in practices, specifically when it comes to compilation or review, a lot of guys are still doing Excel, and that's perfect. I mean, that's fine. It isn't a complicated if you've bought a methodology and you're busy running it on Excel. The only time that we're really seeing heavy use of working papers is when it comes to audit. Unless you've bought our package and then it has compilation and review and accounting officer and legal practitioner, etc., and all the guidelines built in already. But we see a lot of small practices that just focus on compilation, still using Excel for the working papers. And, it'd be lovely if you can come on to us, but we will see how things go. Very happy again for the financial statements. So thank you everybody for that. As always, if there is anything that you need, any of our clients out there, please shout. Let us know what we're doing right, but more importantly, let us know what we're doing wrong, so we can go for that 66% in a few years. And we're looking excited to what the future brings. A lot of nice automation items coming through in the next few updates. So we're very excited. We're working 24/7. We've expanded now. We're used in about 30 different countries. So from a small little South African company, we're now one of the biggest providers in the world. And with that, we've brought on different countries and different time zones. So we literally work 24/7 a day. So thank you, Dion. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, everybody, for the positive feedback. Love you guys. Let us know if there's anything I can help you with. Adeline, sorry, I'm getting emotional. I get passionate.
I can hear.
I'm not sure if I've spent 10 minutes. I'm probably over it.
No, you spent your 10.
Take me off the air before I start to shed it here.
You're very passionate. We love it. And again, it goes back to value-based invoicing. Earl, I wanted to chuckle when you said a little South African company being international. It just once again reinforces what we all think. We're here at the bottom of Africa. Can we really compete internationally? And you are a shining example of what we can do.
African accountants are the most jacked we still come across. So again, 30+ countries we deal with a lot. South African accountants by far are the most, excuse the language, jacked. I mean, the coverage, the knowledge, the work ethic.
Yes.
Second to none.
And we humble because we undervalue ourselves. But
that too.
And I just have to mention, Earl, though, those financials that are done in 7 minutes, please can we spend some time reviewing the IFRS and IFRS for SMEs? My technical heart just had a moment there. So we produce and then we apply that fund. Yeah, we apply a fund. We don't forget that part.
Everything's been taken into account already. So that final is a very important word.
Just now, what Rob would pay money for you and I to sit and box on that one, but we'll carry on because otherwise.
And I wasn't talking about IFRS. IFRS is a few-day job at least. I think a general set of IFRS financial statements, if you've done it in 2 weeks, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm feeling valued again. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on because Earl will just take over.
Sorry.
You can.
Myself.
No, it's fine. So on this survey, it for me personally was very interesting to see that Excel is everywhere.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But again, for SAAA Excel training, if there's additional need, please let us know. Because obviously we want to equip you where you are, but giving you knowledge, because as soon as you become aware of things, all of a sudden you see everything. When you buy a new car and all of a sudden on the road, you see the same car, and it feels as though everybody's all of a sudden buying the car. It's because you're becoming aware of certain things. So everybody's now aware of DraftWorks and the benefits, what it can give everybody. Then let me move on. Just looking at the time. So other things that also came out of the survey was that there was consensus on the key issues that will affect the future of the profession: leadership, ethics, the impact of regulation and compliance, access to skills, access to staff, trainees, access to trainees. So I'm very passionate about trainees, and a learnership is so important. I mean, that's how we all, became the professionals we are today. And it is such an important phase in somebody's life. But being a trainee can sometimes break you if you're in the wrong environment. And for the organization, for the firm, it is to know and understand, yes, it's a junior staff member, but I need to invest loads of time. And then that goes back to productivity. That goes back to time management. That goes back to effective values. What are the work values that you have as an individual, that your team has? How do you assist your team with their work values? How do you get people to understand, although you might have your own personal work values, and we all have quite unique work values, what is the work value in the office? When we talk about working from home, that has been a huge challenge. Although, yes, I can see how productivity could increase due to working from home. You're not sitting in traffic anymore. But now all of a sudden, it's the balance. My job is at home. I'm never away. So how do you deal with that? For some people, it's the challenge. The TV keeps on calling. The fridge keeps on calling. For other people, it's I'm always working. I'm never stopping. So trying to see how you equip your staff so that ultimately it is beneficial to all in the circumstances where we are. Very few people, very few entities believed in remote working 2 years ago. COVID hit and we all had to adapt. And now all of a sudden that plays a role in your recruitment strategy. Because when you appoint somebody, you're not necessarily going to sit next to them, although we're getting back to normal, but something to think of going forward as well. What are those additional things you need to bring into your recruitment strategy? And then also in the performance management, what are the things? What are the true things that will ultimately get to the end result? It's not about 8 hours. I can sit for 8 hours behind my laptop and do nothing. I'm there, but I'm not productive. And I'm not giving value. And I think that's the big thing we need to think of. You see, now I'm talking too much. All right. The other thing is the relevance of accountants. And Karen, like you said, when the pooper hits the fan, you really need somebody with expertise. But certain things are being automated. Online packages, digital disruption. So what is it? How do you find the balance? Utilizing the fantastic tools that are out there, like DraftWorks, what is it that you can do to ensure you remain relevant ultimately? The other thing that was also very interesting is in the survey, it was asked, but what are the main success factors? And when you look at this graph, you'll see that obviously location, it's no longer very important. Rank, attending CPD, seminars, innovation, accreditation at professional bodies and personality. It's no longer really about that. It's really about a fair fee. Now, there's the catch scenario again. Well, what is fair for me? And I need to make a living, what Karen was talking about earlier, versus what the client feels is fair. So there it's all about how do you show the value of your service when you interact with your client, so that they understand what they're getting, and not just chase the lowest fee, because the lowest fee is not per se what the client needs, because it's value that you want. The next thing is people skills. in a world where there are so many technical experts and technical knowledge, your client wants to interact with somebody that sees them, that hears them, that understands them. And if you can't make them feel like that, you might not get the client. The other thing is also true, people skills within your team. Because if your team feels they're only there to work, you don't care, you just want hours, you just want delivery. An unhappy team is an unproductive team. And there's so much time and effort and money you invest in your staff. It's to find the balance. I'm not saying, allow everything and, there's no responsibilities, but there needs to be responsibilities, there needs to be accountability. It's about having good boundaries. And how do you define that? As the employer, as a staff member, working from home, boundaries at your home. You're sitting behind a desk. Are you in a room with other people? The family's walking in, etc. Friends are walking in. How do you manage those things? Commitment is so important in a world where people give up so easily. If it's too difficult, no, I'm going to stop. That's okay. Let me move on. Commitment, passion. I personally want to say passion. You need to be passionate. You need to have drive. You need to see the end goal. You need to understand, yes, I want to achieve certain things. And it's not per se for the piece of paper. It's not for the qualification. It's not for the salary sometimes. The salary gives you something. It gives you a means to do something that has intrinsic value to you. And you need to determine what that is. And then obviously the biggest success factor is reputation. Now, again, that's catch-22. If I'm only opening a firm now, if it's the first week, how do I get to reputation? But again, you as an individual are building a brand on a day-to-day basis. And if you give value to each client, word of mouth, we saw in the survey, that just runs. It's the best way of getting referrals. Let me go to the next one. Sorry, because before I elaborate too much. Big things for me. Effective boundaries, I mentioned that. Responsibility, accountability. It's not a free-for-all. Everybody needs to comply with certain things, but you need to clearly define what that is. And that goes to effective performance management techniques and also tools. How are you ensuring that your staff knows and understand what they need to do? Sometimes if you take half an hour or an hour before the assignment, it will save you so much time later on. Because if they first go, and there's not always time, I understand that, but certain things equip them to understand what is expected, because your review process will be so much quicker. Ensure that they understand when you appoint them and, on a continuous basis, what is it that they need to do today, this week? And nobody wants to micromanage. I personally don't believe in micromanagement. I believe in giving clear expectations and allowing people to give you feedback in a timely manner and having those controls in place. Don't wait until the end when the deadline's due and now everything is wrong and nobody achieved what they needed to achieve. So a lot of tools and techniques that one needs to, that one can introduce if you don't have that already. And again, I want to say time is money, but again, you only have so many hours. So what is it that you can do to make it more effective? And then what Karen also linked to earlier, succession planning. Now, again, if it's a very small firm, if something should happen to the partner, what's going to happen? If one of your trainees should leave, what's going to happen? What if a manager leaves? And again, it's one thing to make the comment in a bigger organization. In a small firm, what is it that you can do? What is it that you can practically do? And sometimes we think it's the big thing. We think this must be a massive strategy and you must have a 5-year plan. And yes, there's a time and a place for that. But sometimes it's a baby step. Sometimes it's a small thing. What's the one little thing you can do today to get to your next step? You can't build a mountain in one day. How do you eat the elephant? Bit by bit. So identify what's your elephant and let's go to the bit by bit and make some progress on a daily basis, because ultimately you'll get where you need to go. All right, so I said a lot. I think I might be over my time now. What I want to ask before I go to the next slide, let me maybe just quickly talk about this, and then we'll open it up if there is maybe 1 or 2 questions from the chat room. You will note that Jeremiah has shared a link to an additional survey that we really want to request you complete. This survey is going to take you maximum 10 minutes. It's 8 questions. Reason for the survey is just to get a bit more understanding and clarity on what is the top 3 things that you think your staff need. And it's on 3 levels. So if you could please complete that, really appreciate that. SAAA will be using those results to try and ensure that additional courses, if needs be, are introduced, and to streamline and focus the training for the next couple of months. And then the last thing before I open it to the floor is just to say that should you want the detailed report, you can contact SAAA. They will gladly assist you in that regard. I think there's a small fee involved, but I do hope that the presentation has assisted you. And yeah, let me maybe see, are there additional comments in the chat function that we can maybe answer? Is there like a burning question?
There just seems to be comments on what we've been saying. Earl, you seem to be working really hard in the chat box. They're all definitely interested in the technology. But there's so much that you've said, Annalene, that just resonates as well. It's really about, we live in a service-driven industry. So what I'm seeing all the time is we've got to value our staff that help us deliver to our clients. And when they talk about a fair fee, sometimes actually just showing them what you're doing. So often we go off into our little burrow and we go and do this amazing work, but when do we ever show the client what we are actually doing or what this actually means for them? That the communication and people skills comes in there as well, is actually just showing what we are helping and what we can help with, what we are able to do for their businesses. But that also means that we can't just be doing cookie cutter sausage factory work. That technology helps us with that. Technology helps us with getting things out, like getting those financials drafted quickly, but then sit down and analyze those financials and sit down with your client and saying to your client, do you know that you've got a problem here with your debtors? They're getting a little bit too long in the tooth. You're holding too much inventory. Is there any way you can manage your inventory better so that you can improve your cash flow? And suddenly they look at you with a whole different set of eyes because they see you as the work that you're doing has value. So people never mind paying if the service is valuable to them. And if you show that you're quality, not just chasing the money and and trying to find as much as you can, then they feel a bit exploited. But if they see that you're giving something to them, people will always be happy to pay for that and come back to you for more. I mean, it's lovely to speak to non-auditors because auditors are in a hard place. But in this space where most of the audience are, you can really be a partner to these businesses and help these businesses out. My other big issue that I want to just mention is dealing with this younger generation with an older generation. So the generation gaps, we're looking at 45 plus partners, which are Generation X, and we love Top Gun. As someone said, it was a love letter to our generation. And then we're dealing with 20-year-old, TikTokers. And the work, the way they see work, the way they are, they communicate, the way that they engage with us is sometimes we've got to stop and look at this a little bit differently and apply our minds to this to make the most out of them. But also there are things we know that have to carry on, and there are things we can learn from them. And to move everything forward, we have to move our practices forward. And evolve. If you keep on, the most dangerous words in mankind is we always did it that way.
True. And that's why you're extinct. Well, some.
Yeah.
We need to improve on a daily basis. Well,
yes,
as much as we can.
And adapt to the environment we find ourselves in.
Correct. And if you just think, sometimes accountants, auditors, left brain people, we're so stuck in, well, this is the box, this is the rule, this is how things are being done, and then COVID hit. So if there's one thing that we can all admit, when life throws through us the biggest lemon we could ever get, we all made lemonade. We had to adjust. So if your survival is limited, you will adjust. And sometimes that's the tweak you need to make, the shift in your mind to say, but really, if I want to go to the next level, I need to adjust. And we've all done it successfully. Yes, it's been very challenging, and but we can indeed do it if we want to.
The other one that which I was also picking up from what you were saying is, we talk and complain about the young staff. We talk and complain about the challenge of throughput in staff and bringing people into our profession. But so many practices that I speak to, the partners are how will somebody young get excited if you are not excited? We walk into the offices and we complain about compliance. We walk into it and we complain about regulation. We walk and say, we've worked a 60-hour week and we're exhausted and we don't know what we're going to do. And and the youngsters look at this and say, well, why do I want to be here? Why do I want to go through and put myself through this? Where is the fun in it? So you actually are pivoting between your clients, but also to your staff. You've got to share that passion with them and show them what this is really about. To get them enthusiastic and to get them wanting to work with you, as opposed to being dictatorial to them.
True. And Karen, just one thing. I think for any young person that started working in the last 2 years, I have the utmost respect for them. If I think back of my articles many years ago, I mean, it's totally different from what these young individuals, young professionals had to face. You're in a new job, you're working from home, remotely, you need to build a relationship with the boss.
There's no supervision.
There's no supervision. If you do want to ask a question, it's via technology, and I love and support technology, but it's totally different versus standing up, walking to somebody and asking them for assistance. So that's really something we need to acknowledge and give them credit for. Secondly, it has had a major impact on trainees and all youngsters, because it has been such a big adjustment for them. And if you think for us it was an adjustment, imagine not being 100% sure on your own work and what you need to deliver, and all right, in your corner, work and perform and deliver quality quick, because I think which you might have the technical knowledge. It does not mean you've got the practical experience, and we've all seen and lived the challenge in that regard. I don't think there's a trainee on earth that can say, well, because I had the technical knowledge, I could complete a working paper first time around, or complete financials first time around.
100%.
Yeah.
And they're also feeling it coming back to the office at the moment, because the corporate culture, there's been a break in it. And the supervisors and managers have to be more sensitive to where they're coming from. But
yes, all right. We've got 6 more minutes. I just want to see in the chat, is there maybe some question that panel members you've picked up, or Jeremiah, is there something we can maybe answer? I'm trying to.
Somebody's noting that Labour Relations Act has a massive impact, and it is a different world to when. I mean, I still remember my partner throwing my file, literally through the door. He used to ask the secretary, what sort of mood was he in, because you never quite knew what missile was coming at you. I mean, nowadays that's never going to happen at a workplace. And it is a different world to work in. The trainees are also they have a different mindset, but I think they also get a bad reputation, because I think sometimes we just have to put ourselves, we have to ask and be more curious. I had one partner say to me this week that a trainee just sat and he was a productivity meeting and saying, you're not being productive and we need to talk about it. And the trainee just said, I zone out and I can't work and I'm never going to meet that productivity. And the partner was like, I would never have told my boss that. I would never have ever just sat in front of my boss and said that. But then it came out that he battled with ADHD and this and that and the next thing. And it was a case of we've got to be sensitive to a whole lot of issues that are part of the discourse that we would never have been asked to, or our partner wouldn't have cared about any of that 20 years ago. But nowadays, there's a lot more to managing people than before. It's going to take time, but then it will be worth it because they'll appreciate the effort you put into them, and they'll be more loyal to you for that. And then you can get your fees out of them later.
Correct. And also just two things. With the work values, it's so important. For some people, money is the thing that drives them. For other people, it's not the money. It's the acknowledgement that they get. So it's very important to know and understand that. And to identify what your staff, what are their work values? What are the things that trigger them? Because that helps you in performance managing them and building and equipping them for the future. Let me maybe pause there because otherwise I'm going to talk too much. Just one more thing. We must all acknowledge that everybody's stress levels are much higher. If you just think the last 2 years and even today, and to an extent for some of us, because of continued stress, you could even be in a traumatic stress level. So it's not, sometimes people think traumatic stress is a once-off incident, which obviously it can be, but sometimes it just builds up over time. And one needs to know that and need to help and guide the person through it. But again, just something to take note of. And if a trainee says, I zone out, it's great that the partner actually tried to identify why. Why is that happening and helping the trainee with it.
It's something that, and the last point, maybe, Paul, that we need to build into the next webinar or next survey that I'd be very interested in is the state of mental health. I know that's become something that's become far more relevant in our profession is the state of mental health, and where we're going and what we're at. I know that there's certain institutes that are focusing on it, offering webinars and support and all the rest because of the anxiety, the stress. You take on a lot of your client's stress. You're there counseling your client while they're at their worst day in their life because their business is going down. And you're trying to help them and find a way through it. And that's a lot to take on. We are not naturally designed that way as accountants. We step away from the lever and we go, we don't want to engage and be in conflict. And there's a lot of conflict and a lot of dispute that's happening at the moment as well, because people are desperate and fighting. And as the accountants, we're meant to be the calm center in the storm, but that means we take that away and we have to put it somewhere. And I would just be very interested to look into the future as to where people are at with that. In terms of mental health and stress management.
And finding ways to manage it. Because late at night, when you get in bed and your mind is not switching off and you're thinking about the client, you're thinking about the staff member, that shows you your stress is not where it should be, but there's no magic little answer. Obviously, it is a process to try and deal with it.
And I think if more people realize that more people in the same boat, more people talk about it and realize they're not alone. And I think in that something as simple as that would go a long way to help.
Very true. Yes, if I can summarize, I love what you just said. We're all in this together. You're not alone. And let's just help one another to have a prosperous future, because it is possible. So, all right. Then, everybody, looking at the time, I want to say thank you so much to the panel members. Thank you so much for making time available. For all the attendees, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending. I do hope it assisted you. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to email. You've got our direct email addresses, and then obviously for SAAA as well. And we will gladly assist if we can. But from my side, thank you. It's been an honor. And Earl, Karen, Paul, you are stars. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. It's been fantastic. What an awesome panel. Thank you, Annalene, for convening it and sharing it for us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.